In South Korea, a gas leak blast injures 5 people in Gangwon province.
Local authorities say 14 buildings and several cars were damaged by the blast. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Elago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Former President Rodrigo Duterte denies purported secret meetings for destabilization plot against Marcos administration. Lawmakers to review the NGCP's franchise after the Panay subgrid failure. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the Israel-Hamas war could metastasize. A tornado flips cars and lashes buildings in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And this year's Golden Globes delivered a lot of highlights and a few lowlights.
Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Nevada,
España,
Paris, France,
United Kingdom,
Washington, D.C.,
London Bureau, Papua New Guinea,
in New York,
Washington, D.C.
Mata ng Agila, Mata ng Agila,
Mata ng Agila International.
Trusted, connected, on point.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte expressed his desire to communicate with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. regarding the investigation into Sunshine Media Network International, or SMNI, which aired Duterte's program Gikan sa Masa para sa Masa. Duterte stated that he is puzzled as to why his program has been affected, emphasizing that he does not recall making severe criticisms against any government figure. He also vehemently denied rumors that he took part in clandestine meetings with police, soldiers, and politicians amid alleged destabilization plots against the Marcos administration. In response, Malacanang Palace conveyed that Duterte is welcome to reach out to President Marcos for discussions. The National Telecommunications Commission took action on December 21st by issuing a 30-day suspension order on the broadcast operations of SMNI, citing alleged violations of its franchise. Despite SMNI filing a petition to halt the suspension order, the Court of Appeals dismissed the appeal.
Oil firms are set to implement price hikes on their products tomorrow. Motorists are expected to pay 10 centavos more on diesel, kerosene, and gasoline per liter. The Department of Energy said the price hike is the result of price adjustment in the world market. The rerouting of oil tankers in the Red Sea due to geopolitical tensions has also contributed to the price movement.
The Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, is gearing up to make decisions on requests for price adjustments for basic necessities and prime commodities starting this January 2024. According to Trade Assistant Secretary Amanda Nograles, the DTI has received requests for price adjustments on 63 out of the 217 items listed in the suggested retail price bulletin. Among the items with requested price adjustments are canned sardines, processed milk, coffee, bread, instant noodles, bottled water, and condiments, among others. For food items in particular, manufacturers are seeking price adjustments ranging from 0.25 to 7.25 pesos. Nograles mentioned that some of these requests for price adjustments were submitted in 2022, while others date back to early last year. The manufacturers have cited higher costs of raw materials as the primary reason behind their requests for adjustments.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has recently approved the Ease of Paying Taxes Act, aimed at modernizing the tax administration process and fortifying the rights of taxpayers. This legislation is anticipated to play a pivotal role in advancing the 8-point socioeconomic agenda by fostering improved revenue collection through digitalization initiatives. Under the new law, taxpayers are categorized into micro, small, medium, and large entities. It introduces the flexibility of electronic or manual filing of returns, enabling tax payments through authorized agent banks or recognized tax software providers. The legislation also abolishes the previous distinction between documentation and the basis of sales for goods and services, and classifies value-added tax refund claims into low, medium, and high-risk categories. Meanwhile, President Marcos emphasized the collective responsibility of every Filipino in realizing his administration's vision of a bagong Pilipinas. He issued a challenge for citizens to actively pursue their New Year's resolutions, urging them to enhance themselves through activities such as reading, adopting new technologies, and maintaining personal grooming and discipline, among others. The president also expressed his commitment alongside the Filipino people to ensure the attainment of Bagong Pilipinas by aligning the nation with the goals set by his administration.
Senator Raffy Tulfo has criticized the decision to import modern jeepney units from China for the Public Utility Vehicle Modernization Program, suggesting that it raises concerns about corruption within the initiative. Senator Tulfo questions the rationale behind choosing more expensive units from China when local manufacturers can produce similar vehicles at a significantly lower cost. According to the senator, the imported jeepneys from China are priced between 2.6 million to 2.9 million pesos per unit, considerably higher than the cost of brand new units from local manufacturers, which range from 900,000 to 985,000 pesos each. He argues that if the government opted to buy from local manufacturers at the lower price point, it could potentially afford to subsidize modern jeepney units without imposing additional costs on transport workers. Additionally, purchasing locally would support thousands of Filipino jobs and maintain the traditional Filipino appearance of the iconic jeepneys.
A Solon has urged President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to review the competence of Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, officials amid its abrupt halt of the senior high school programs in state universities and colleges, or SUCs. Surigao del Norte Representative Ace Barber has raised the concern after the agency's announcement that SUCs would no longer accept senior high school students. This is due to the government's voucher programs coverage, where the K-12 transition period from school years 2016 to 2017 and 2020 to 2021 are only entitled. In a statement, Barber said, and I quote, "Instead of being part of the solution, CHED created another problem. It is as if our educational system is not beset with enough problems. The callous pronouncement only shows the priorities and incompetence of the sitting set of commissioners, whose qualifications and outputs should now be reviewed by a body created by the president." CHED Chairman Prosper de Vera III previously said that the agency is willing to help implement the transition. He, however, stressed that the motion should be led by the Department of Education and the Board of Regents. De Vera added that the mandate falls under the basic and secondary education, which is not covered by CHED. He also clarified that the K-12 program is not abolished and CHED has no authority to abolish senior high. Coming up, Sheikh Hasina has secured her 5th term as Bangladeshi Prime Minister. And a fire broke out at a late former Japanese Prime Minister's residence. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
Inyong katuwang tungkol sa usaping ito.
Nasa puso dapat ng Pilipino to love what is Filipino.
Kaya dapat ihayag ng saloobin.
Kahit gaano kasi karami yung doktor natin, ay kung may bayad din, baliwala din.
Paano makakabili ang Pilipino ng bigas?
Himayin ang hinaing.
Gaano karaming pera bang kailangan mo para maging masaya ka?
Alamin ang pwedeng gawin.
So I think the lesson is Pag may fake news, i-correct ka agad ng people concerned.
Sagutin mo agad. Mag-reality check tayo.
check yun.
Check.
Check na check.
Double check.
Check na check tayo dyan.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. The Congress and the Senate will conduct separate investigations into the massive power outage that disrupted the Panay Island early this month. Several lawmakers called for an extensive inquiry into whether to continue or cancel the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, or NGCP's franchise. The said power grid also came after fire due to persistent blackouts happening in several provinces in Western Visayas broke out. Two resolutions were filed in the Senate asking to review NGCP's 25-year legislative franchise. Senator Francis Tolentino, in his Senate Resolution number 894, says the persistent blackouts in the Panay Island pose an adverse impact on the operational efficiency of the people and the overall economy of the region. Tolentino wants to inquire about the process of NGCP's maintenance shutdown. He also raised the issue of whether there was a sufficient power supply before NGCP's scheduled maintenance. The senator urged authorities to look into the adoption of new solutions, including infrastructure upgrades and exploration of alternative energy resources. Senator Amy Marcos also filed a similar resolution, insisting on reviewing NGCP's franchise. Marcos says that every year, NGCP has been under review due to its failure to address the almost annual occurrence of power outages, but until now, there has been no action to cancel NGCP's franchise. The NGCP says that generation is not their business, but Senator Marcos points out that under their franchise agreement, managing the grid is their primary concern. Marcos avers that the recent blackout in the Panay Island is a clear issue of grid mismanagement, lack of investment in interconnectivity, reserve requirement, and lack of proactive management. The senator says NGCP's projects under the Transmission Development Plan, particularly the Cebu-Negros Panay Backbone Project and Visayas-Mindanao Interconnection Project, have been delayed. These projects, according to the senator, are long-term solutions to address the power crisis in the country.
Ang laking pinsala para sa buong isla at isang buong linggo at isipin mo yan ang kinagulat ng lahat, yan ay hindi naman tayo papayag ng ganon. I think everybody wants to know because it's already so delayed, ang tagal-tagal na.
The Senate Committee on Energy has set the hearing on Wednesday. Expected to attend the hearing are the officials of the Department of Energy, NGCP, at Palm Concepcion Power Corporation. Senator Francis Escudero says they want to inquire why there was a sudden shutdown of the power plant and why there was no immediate notice from the Department of Energy. Escudero believes that if there was an early notice about the power outage, then authorities could have looked into an alternative source of energy. Meanwhile, Deputy Majority Leader Sandro Marcos's House Resolution 1534 seeks a possible separation and transfer of systems operation function from the NGCP to another power grid entity.
In other news, Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina won re-election for a fifth term Sunday following a boycott led by an opposition party she branded a terrorist organization. Initial reports indicate voter turnout is low, a meager 40%. Anna Kui reports.
Protesters took to the streets Sunday in support of boycotting the Bangladeshi election. Although Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has presided over breakneck economic growth in a country once beset by grinding poverty, her government has been accused of rampant human rights abuses and a ruthless opposition crackdown. Her party faced almost no effective rivals in the seats it contested. but it avoided fielding candidates in a few constituencies in an apparent effort to avoid the legislature being branded a one-party institution. The opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party refused to take part in the vote, which it described as a sham election. Opposition ranks have been decimated by mass arrests. Hasina, who is 76, had called for citizens to show faith in the democratic process. Election officials described voting as largely peaceful, with nearly 800,000 police officers and soldiers deployed countrywide. Anna Kui from Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
India's top court has reinstated life prison sentences for 11 men who were convicted of sexually assaulting a woman during deadly religious rioting 2 decades ago and directed the convicts to surrender to the authorities within the next 2 weeks. The heinous crime occurred in 2002 in western Gujarat state during communal rioting, considered one of India's worst incidents of religious violence, resulting in over 1,000 fatalities. The victim, who was pregnant at the time, suffered a brutal assault, and 7 members of her family, including her 3-year-old daughter, lost their lives during the riots. Originally convicted in 2008 for rape and murder, the men had been released in 2022 after serving 14 years in prison. Although the men were initially eligible for remission of their sentence under a policy in place at the time of their convictions, a revised policy implemented by the federal government in 2014 prohibits remission release for those convicted of certain crimes, including rape and murder.
Disinformation experts claim that China has spread narratives that sow doubt about the United States to drive a wedge between Taipei and Washington. Disinformation researcher Kwang Shun-yang coined the term Yimeilun, or U.S. skepticism, describing the faithfulness of Taiwan's biggest ally, portraying the island as a pawn exploited by Washington. Other analysts describe the agenda as a collection of manipulative narratives showing that U.S. will not support Taiwan or will abandon it should war spark. Between 2021 and 2023, think tank IORG discovered 84 types of U.S. skepticism narratives on Chinese language media outlets and social media platforms.
A fire broke out Monday afternoon at the old house of the late former Japanese Prime Minister Kakue Tanaka in Tokyo's Bankyo Ward. The Tokyo Fire Department received an emergency call from a man who said smoke was rising from Tanaka's wooden house. About 20 fire trucks were dispatched to put out the fire. But the blaze burned 800 square meters of the area and destroyed a 2-story wooden house completely. Police reported no injuries and are now investigating the cause of the fire.
North Korea's Kim Yo-jong has mocked Seoul's ability to detect Pyongyang's weapon launches. This is after South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff report claiming that Pyongyang fired more than 60 rounds on Saturday. Kim Yo-jong, however, refuted that North Korea had only detonated blasting powder, simulating the sound of its artilleries on Saturday. In a statement, Kim Yo-jong said, and I quote, "The result was clear as we expected. They misjudged the blasting sound as the sound of gunfire and conjectured it as a provocation. And they even made a false and impudent statement that the shells dropped north." Seoul's military, however, dismissed the senior figure's claim, describing it as a comedy-like vulgar propaganda. They add that it aimed to undermine the South Korean people's trust in the military and create divisions.
Former Gambian Interior Minister Ousmane Sonko is on trial in Switzerland facing charges, including crimes against humanity, for his alleged involvement in years of repression against opponents of the country's longtime dictator, Yahya Jammeh. Ousmane Sonko, who served as Gambia's Interior Minister from 2006 to 2016, was taken to Switzerland's Federal Criminal Court in Bellinzona. The trial has garnered attention as an opportunity to achieve a conviction under universal jurisdiction, allowing the prosecution of serious crimes committed abroad. This indictment against Sonko, filed in April by the Swiss Attorney General's office, covers alleged crimes spanning 16 years under Jammeh's rule, marked by arbitrary detention, sexual abuse, and extrajudicial killings. Swiss prosecutors allege that Sonko supported, participated in, and failed to prevent attacks against regime opponents in Gambia.
In a united effort, the United States and 13 partner nations, including Australia, Germany, China, and Japan, have issued a stern warning against further Houthi attacks in the Red Sea.
呼吁有关方面停止袭扰民用船只的行为，尊重并保障各国在红海水域的航行自由。
This joint statement emphasizes that the consequences of continued threats by the Houthis extend to jeopardizing lives, disrupting the global economy, and impeding the free flow of commerce in critical waterways. With nearly 15% of global seaborne trade passing through the Red Sea, including significant percentages of global grain, oil, and liquefied natural gas trade, the impact is substantial. The International Maritime Organization has reported that the Houthi attacks are not limited to shipping linked to Israel, further heightening concerns. In response to the growing risks, a number of companies are rerouting their ships around South Africa, adding around 10 days to journeys on average, and is negatively affecting international trade and increasing freight costs.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had a warning for the world midway through his regional tour aimed at de-escalating the Israel-Hamas war. He says he fears for the security of the Middle East. Thomas I. Likeness reports.
At a joint news conference in Qatar with Qatar's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed, Blinken says this is a moment of profound tension in the region.
This is a conflict that could easily metastasize, causing even more insecurity and even more suffering.
Blinken is in Qatar following stops in Jordan, Turkey, and Greece. He also warns Israel to put a premium on keeping civilians safe and making sure they get the help that they need.
To the extent operations continue, they be designed around protecting civilians and around getting humanitarian assistance to people who need it, not the other way around.
Israel has carried out a relentless bombardment and ground invasion that has killed nearly 23,000 people in Gaza, most of them women and children. As far as suggestions from two Israeli ministers that Palestinians should be encouraged to emigrate, Blinken says that's a non-starter.
Palestinian civilians must be able to return home as soon as conditions allow. They cannot. They must not be pressed to leave Gaza.
Meanwhile, Sheikh Mohammed says talks with Hamas on a fresh truce in Gaza are ongoing with U.S. backing. However, he says there's been a recent obstacle.
Having one of the senior leader of Hamas being killed is something that can affect such a complicated process.
As his shuttle diplomacy continues, Blinken is now in Abu Dhabi and due to travel to Saudi Arabia today. Thomas I. Likeness from Atanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Iraq's military has marked its 103rd anniversary with a grand parade. The event displayed Baghdad's military prowess from its various military machinery and equipment. Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, along with other high-ranking officials and government members, graced the event as they showed deep respect and appreciation for its military personnel.
Anti-government protesters in Israel rallied in Tel Aviv, calling for early elections and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government to resign. Demonstrators also protested outside Netanyahu's home in Caesarea on Saturday night. Israeli local media quotes organizers as saying some 20,000 people attended the main protest in Tel Aviv. They included people who had been evacuated from areas near the Gaza Strip and the northern border with Lebanon due to rocket fire. Also attending were relatives of people who died in the initial Hamas attack. Calls for new elections have been growing steadily, even as the country is still reeling from Hamas's October 7th shock attack. Protester Shachaf Netzer says people are fed up.
We had enough. We had enough. The government are a bunch of idiots. They are leading us to a horrible place. They are leading us to an unspeakable future. Bibi Netanyahu and all the rest of his idiots are ruining Israel, and they are destroying everything we hope and dreamed of.
Many are unhappy with Netanyahu's failure to secure the release of the remaining hostages. More than 100 Israelis are still believed to be held captive by Hamas in Gaza.
Mexican authorities are investigating the cartel-related killing of 5 people in the southern state of Guerrero. The probe comes after an NGO reported an attack in the area involving drones and explosives. Angel Membreri reports.
Mexico's prosecutor's office says it has started an inquiry into an attack on a group of 30 people in the town of Buena Vista. Authorities say the incident stemmed from a confrontation between the criminal groups La Familia Michoacana and Los Dilacos. The two groups are in a turf war for control of the area. The human rights NGO Minerva Bello had first reported on Friday an attack in the area using drones and explosive devices the previous afternoon. Agents believe the 5 victims died in a burned-out car, but the bodies had been taken away by the residents of a neighboring community. At least 6 others suffered injuries. The whereabouts of the rest of those targets is not known. The prosecutor's office says it had not received any reports of missing people in the area. Guerrero is one of the poorest states in Mexico and is used by drug cartels to grow marijuana and poppies. Angel Membreri for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
United States Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is facing sharp criticism following reports that President Joe Biden was not aware he was hospitalized. Other high-ranking U.S. officials, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks, also had no knowledge about Austin's hospital stay. Pentagon said Austin was hospitalized for days following complications from what was described as a minor medical procedure. However, sources said Biden and other senior officials only knew about Austin's hospitalization after 3 days. The surprise announcement of Austin's hospitalization raised questions about why it was disclosed so late. Austin averred that he is taking full responsibility for his decisions about his late medical disclosure, saying he understands media concerns about transparency. Pentagon Press Secretary Major General Pat Ryder said before Austin's hospitalization, Austin gave authorization for the strike in Baghdad. Another source confirmed that on the day he was hospitalized, Austin participated in a call with Biden to discuss the escalating situation in the Red Sea. A United States Department of Defense spokesperson said Austin has resumed his full duties in the Pentagon.
China has imposed sanctions on 5 American defense firms in response to the United States' decision to proceed with new arms sales to Taiwan. Among the firms affected are BAE Systems Land and Armament, Alliant Tech Systems Operation, AeroVironment, Viasat, and Data Link Solutions. China's foreign ministry noted the measure includes freezing the company's assets and prohibiting Chinese organizations and individuals from working with them. Beijing is firm to its One China principle and long urged the U.S. to abide by it. The U.S. has recognized China's sovereignty over Taiwan. U.S. President Joe Biden, however, said that Washington would defend the island in the event of an unprecedented attack by Beijing.
India's Gautam Adani reclaims the title of Asia's wealthiest person. This was after India's Supreme Court ruled that no new investigations were needed into Hindenburg Research's allegations that Adani's group committed stock manipulation and accounting fraud. Adani's net worth rose $7.7 billion in a day to $97.6 billion, surpassing Mukesh Ambani's $97 billion fortune. Shares of the Adani Group also spiked higher on Asia's Friday afternoon trading session.
Federal officials ordered the immediate grounding of some Boeing 737 MAX 9s for inspection after an Alaska Airlines plane's fuselage fell off on Friday. The United States aviation regulators said the required checks would take around 4 to 8 hours per aircraft. The inspection will also affect about 171 Boeing 737 MAX 9 airplanes worldwide. An Alaska Airlines pilot was forced to make an emergency landing last week as its 171 passengers and 6 crew members donned oxygen masks. One passenger said the hole was as wide as a refrigerator. Another witness said a child's shirt was ripped off in the wind as the plane made its emergency landing. Authorities said no one was seriously hurt in the incident. Up next, Fort Lauderdale, Florida is subject to nasty weather. Farmers start gathering in Berlin ahead of nationwide demonstrations. And NASA's first moon landing mission in decades launches. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break. Don't go away.
Viral at exclusive. Mga reklamo at problema na napapanood at na-post sa social media. Ngayon, aaksyonan na rin ng Responde. Kaya kung meron po kayong nais ay sumbong, mag-text sa 0915-415-1035 o mag-email sa responde@net25.com. Pwede rin kayo magpadala ng mensahe sa ating pong Facebook page at Net25TV. Walang problema na hindi mabibigyan po ng solusyon. Basta't may agad na responde. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Dito lamang sa Net25.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos every Sunday, 9 p.m.
A tornado rolled through Fort Lauderdale, Florida, damaging boats and downing power lines. Locals witnessed the tornado roll through a residential area and a marina and captured the entire event on video. According to Miami's National Weather Service office, officials received multiple phone calls and social media reports of a twister ripping through the city. Fort Lauderdale officials said that no injuries have been reported and the damage from the storm appears to be minor. Several reports of other severe weather across the Sunshine State, including funnel clouds, a waterspout, and damaging wind gusts. The highest thunderstorm wind gust that has been reported was 52 miles per hour. More severe weather is possible in Florida in the coming days as another powerful storm moves across the country's eastern half.
A blast has injured 5 people in Pyeongchang, Gangwon province following a reported gas leak at a liquefied petroleum gas station. Gangwon Province Fire Headquarters said 2 among 5 sustained severe burns and are currently in stable condition. The other 3, on the other hand, suffered minor injuries. Local authorities reported 14 buildings and several cars were damaged by the blast. Meanwhile, residents from nearby areas have been evacuated. The fire was controlled after 3 hours. Authorities rescued a sailor near the island of San Andrés, Colombia.
The sailor spent 2 weeks at sea in a damaged yacht. He said that his yacht's communication and navigation systems broke. The rescue team added that the sailor, though hurt, did not sustain any serious injuries or major wounds.
Bolivia has reported its biggest ever cocaine seizure. Authorities found more than 8 tons of the drug apparently destined for the Netherlands. Jane Kathleen Gregorio tells us that story.
The drugs had been stashed in a massive shipment of timber last month. The powdered cocaine had a street value of about $526 million. Bolivian Interior Minister Eduardo del Castillo says police discovered the shipment on a truck of an Andean road on December 30th. It had been hidden among a Europe-bound lumber shipment. 4 people have been arrested, including a Colombian national Del Castillo describes as a big fish in the drug trade. Bolivia is the world's 3rd largest producer of coca and cocaine after Colombia and Peru. It allows the cultivation and marketing of coca leaves for chewing, use in tea, and for religious rituals. Authorities cap cultivation to provide for the legal market, but some is siphoned off for illicit cocaine production. Jane Kathleen Gregorio from Atenang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Thousands of farmers arrived in Berlin to protest against government plans to reduce subsidies. The GDL Train Drivers Union would stage strikes for 3 days at Germany's passenger services and 4 days at the cargo operations. Authorities urge commuters to avoid or postpone travel if possible, since blockades are expected to disrupt roadways across the country. Meanwhile, Chancellor Olaf Scholz's government repeated it is not considering any further changes to plans to phase out agricultural subsidies. A spokesperson for Scholz said in the end, a government has to decide and has to lead the way, asserting that such decisions cannot always be to everyone's satisfaction.
Thousands of Rohingya in Bangladesh are homeless after fire ripped through a refugee camp. Authorities believe the blaze had been deliberately set. Arlene Ocampo has the details.
The campfire tore through the tightly packed complex of bamboo and tarpaulin shelters in the early hours of Sunday morning at a camp in the country's southeast, destroying about 800 homes. The United Nations Refugee Agency says nearly 7,000 people have been left homeless, but no casualties have been reported. An arson investigation has been ordered. The UN says 120 facilities, including learning centers, mosques, and healthcare centers, had also been destroyed or damaged by the inferno. Some refugees had to tear down their homes to create corridors to stop the fire from spreading further. Fires in the dozens of Rohingya refugee camps in Bangladesh are common, especially during the dry season from November to April. But many of the camps are also riddled with violence between rival Rohingya groups. Police say security in the camps has worsened, with more than 60 refugees killed in turf wars and drug-related clashes last year, the highest number on record. Arlene Ocampo from Atenang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Somaliland Defense Minister Abdikani Mohammed Atay has resigned in a bold act of protest against a controversial deal that grants Ethiopia access to a seaport in the breakaway region of Somalia. Defense Minister Atay openly criticized Somaliland President Muse Bihi Abdi, accusing him of failing to consult the Council of Ministers before finalizing the port agreement with Ethiopia. He expressed his dismay, noting that the ministers only learned about the deal through media reports. Atay, who hails from Somaliland's Awdal region, highlighted concerns over Ethiopia's alleged plans to establish a military base in the coastal town of Lughaya within his home region. The reported memorandum of understanding outlines a pact whereby landlocked Ethiopia gains access to the Red Sea, reciprocated by its recognition of Somaliland as an independent state. In response, Somalia has vehemently labeled the agreement as an act of aggression, leading to the recall of its ambassador to Addis Ababa.
Tanzania's e-library will benefit at least 11 million students and over 200,000 public school teachers. The project is a collaboration between the Tanzania Institute for Education and Snaplify, a South Africa-based company specializing in educational technology. Stephen Bestbier, Government Partnership Manager at Snaplify, says the e-library project aims to revolutionize education by providing access to quality education resources countrywide. He adds that the project has a collection of 240,000 titles from approximately 250 publishers. Project heads intend to roll out the e-library in over 19,000 government schools within 3 years.
The stakes are high as the first United States lunar lander in 5 decades blasts off.
10, 9.
The uncrewed Vulcan rocket has launched from Florida to dispatch Astrobotic's Peregrine lunar lander towards the moon. The Peregrine lander is carrying 5 scientific instruments. NASA says if the robotic spacecraft touches down gently on the moon's surface, it will be the first American mission to do so since the Apollo missions in the 1960s and 70s. The Peregrine lander is expected to attempt its moon landing on February 23. Coming right up, Prince Andrew is in hot water after being named in Jeffrey Epstein's court documents. Superman has landed in Manila. And Oppenheimer was the big winner of the Golden Globes, picking up 5 marquee awards. Catch more news in sports and entertainment when we return.
Ang kwento naming mag-asawa taong 2064. Yippee! 40 years together and still growing stronger. Ako si Lolo Ever.
At ako si May.
Oh, di ba? Ikaw si May, ang aking forever. Si Lola May na passionista, loves ko kahit ang tapang niya.
Hoy Ever, loves din kita. Naligo ka na ba?
Abay, oo naman. Paano nga ba naging kami noong taong 2024? Tara May, balikan natin. Panoorin ang nakaraan.
Kaya pa ba ng memory?
Of course, as long as you're with me. Si Ever for me. At si May forever.
Britain's King Charles has made his first public appearance after his brother Prince Andrew was linked to newly released Epstein court documents. Royal sources claim that King Charles is seemingly fulfilling the promise he made to his mother, the late Queen Elizabeth. The insider says the king promised Queen Elizabeth that he would not abandon Prince Andrew once she was gone. Another media report adds that King Charles will not exile Prince Andrew following the latest allegations in the Epstein court documents.
Authorities arrested an Australian-based criminal syndicate involved in a reptile smuggling plot. Police said the syndicate will allegedly sell the native lizards and snakes to Hong Kong's live animal trade. Each lizard could fetch $3,360 on the black market. The total haul value would be $8 million. The police allegedly discovered more than 250 lizards as well as a small number of snakes and unhatched eggs.
Thousands of tourists brave sub-zero weather to attend China's Harbin Ice and Snow Festival in northern Heilongjiang province. The annual festival showcases ice sculptures with maximum temperatures lingering around -10 degrees. This year's event also featured an 810,000 square meter theme park lit up with colorful lights at night. According to the event organizers, this year's average amount of people visiting the park has increased significantly. Around 30,000 tourists have reportedly arrived at Harbin. This doubled the 2018 figure of 18,500.
虽然有点冷，但是我觉得这个冰雕真的特别美。然后刚刚还看了一场烟花秀，然后我觉得非常震撼，在以前都没有见过这样的烟花，非常值得，我觉得。
Estonia-based Filipino Kim Zafra won the Rilton Cup chess tournament at Scandic Continental Hotel in Stockholm, Sweden. Zafra earned 6.5 points from 6 wins and 1 draw in the FIDE standard rated event, applying 90 minutes plus 30 seconds increment. The 41-year-old champion said he dedicates his victory to the Filipinos. The Rilton Cup was first held in 1971 after a donation by physician and chess player Tor Rilton, who wanted to give young Swedish players a chance to play against foreigners.
Rafael Nadal will miss the Australian Open and instead return to Spain for treatment on a hip injury he sustained at the Brisbane International. The Spaniard made his long-awaited return after almost a year out with injury this week, winning his first 2 matches in Brisbane in straight sets. But he was injured in his quarterfinal loss to Jordan Thompson. Shortly after, the former world number 1 said that a scan had shown a micro tear on a muscle but not in the same area as his previous long-term injury. His most recent appearance at a Grand Slam was the 2023 Australian Open, when he struggled with injury in a second-round loss to Mackenzie McDonald, while his latest injury fell in a similar place to that which led to one of the longest defaults in his legendary career. Crucial as it appears, it is not as significant as he initially feared. Nadal will now focus on returning to fitness in time for the French Open, which begins on the 20th of May, and where he is a record 14-time champion. With Nadal's withdrawal, this will be the first Australian Open since 1999 without either Nadal or Roger Federer, who retired in 2022, featuring in the men's singles main draw.
Former Defensive Player of the Year and NBA star Dwight Howard has landed in Manila. Howard shared on social media his arrival in the Philippines, along with naturalized player Andre Blach.
Guess what, y'all? We finally made it to the Philippines!
Howard, an 8-time NBA All-Star, is here to serve as one of Strong Group's imports for the 2024 Dubai International Basketball Championship in the United Arab Emirates. Joining him in the team include former mentioned naturalized Filipino Blach, along with former Oklahoma City Thunder lockdown defender Andre Robertson and ex-TNT import Mackenzie Moore. Strong Group, which will be coached by Charles Chu, is bidding to win the championship in the annual tournament in Dubai after failing to get past the quarterfinals last year.
The Golden Globes kicked off the award season Sunday night at the Beverly Hilton in Los Angeles, with Oppenheimer emerging as the big winner. Stephanie Mayo has the scoop.
The 2024 awards season is here.
The 81st Golden Globes kicked off Hollywood's award season, and the big winners of the night include Oppenheimer, Succession, Beef, and The Bear. Epic drama Oppenheimer racked up 5 wins, including the award for Best Picture Drama, the Director Award for Christopher Nolan, and Cillian Murphy for Best Actor in a Drama. Paul Giamatti won Best Actor on the musical or comedy side for The Holdovers. Meanwhile, Poor Things was named Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy, with the lead star Emma Stone taking home the Best Female Actor for Musical or Comedy, while Lily Gladstone of Killers of the Flower Moon made history as the first Indigenous performer to win the Best Female Actor in a Drama. Barbie, which led coming in with 9 nominations, won just 2, Cinematic and Box Office Achievement and Best Original Song Motion Picture for What Was I Made For by Billie Eilish and Phineas. On the television front, Succession, which ended its 4-season run in May, led with 4 Globes, including Best Drama Series. 3 of the show's actors, Kieran Culkin, Sarah Snook, and Matthew McFadden, nabbed awards.
I've been in here a couple times. It's nice, but I sort of accepted I was never going to be on the stage, so this is a nice moment. Suck it, Pedro. Sorry. Mine.
The series The Bear earned 3 prizes, including Best Comedy Series and Best Leading Actor and Actress in a Musical or Comedy for Jeremy Allen White and Ayo Edebiri. Stand-up comic, the half-Filipino Jokoy, hosted the award show but was criticized for his opening monologue and for blaming his writers for the jokes that bombed.
Some I wrote, some other people wrote. Robert De Niro's here! Yo, I got the gig 10 days ago. You want a perfect monologue? Yo, shut up.
Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
And it's Monday, so to start the week, here's a quote from German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer. Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see.
Well, growing up, I always thought I didn't have a talent in anything, much alone be a genius in anything.
I remember you saying that some time ago.
But also, as I said before, it is so important to just keep trying new things, and then eventually you will discover those talents. And it doesn't have to be a major talent. It could be something that you use in your everyday life that you don't even realize.
Exactly, and you have your whole lifetime to discover and rediscover things and make better of them.
And that's the exciting part about it. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Lianes.
I'm Nina Rich Yelago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point. Thank you from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.